There's a moment in your life where the story changes, not because they came back, but because you did. You returned to your truth, your worth, your energy. You stopped chasing answers outside of yourself, and you turned inward with fierce honesty. You stopped wondering when someone would realize what they lost, and you started becoming someone who no longer loses herself trying to be chosen. That shift, that inner recalibration is everything, because the world doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your energy. When your energy is rooted in lack, desperation, or fear, you attract more confusion. But when it's grounded in confidence, calm, and purpose, you become magnetic, you become a force. And when that happens, people feel it. Suddenly, what once pulled away begins to return, not because you chased it, but because your evolution made it undeniable. Here are the 6 inner energy shifts that ignite this transformation. You stop chasing and you start attracting. And that is the moment your energy becomes your greatest asset. Chasing comes from fear. It's rooted in the anxiety of losing something that, deep down, you believe might not return on its own. It's action born from lack, not from love. And when you're in that mindset, you'll do anything to keep someone's attention. You'll over-explain, over-give, overthink. You'll shrink your needs just to be tolerated. You'll tolerate silence just to feel close. But chasing, though it feels active, is actually disempowering. It signals to your own mind and to the other person that they are the prize and that your worth is still up for debate. Attracting, on the other hand, comes from alignment. It's the energy of someone who knows who they are, what they bring, and what they deserve. You stop needing someone to choose you to feel complete. You stop showing up hoping to be noticed. Instead, you become so rooted in your truth, your purpose, and your peace that the energy around you shifts naturally. You're not performing, you're not proving, you're just being, and that state of being is powerful. It sends a message without saying a word. I no longer need anything outside of me to validate me. I am already whole. That message is loud, even in silence. When you stop chasing, you begin to notice the way your energy was working against you. You see how much of your day was consumed by thoughts of someone else, how you planned your responses based on what might make them stay, how often you put their comfort ahead of your own emotional safety. And then you realize something life-changing. Real connection doesn't require performance. It requires presence. And when someone wants to be in your life, they show up. Clearly, consistently. You don't have to beg, bargain, or bend. You simply receive. This shift is not about manipulation. It's not about withholding love to punish someone. It's about self-honoring. It's about saying, I will not lower my standards just to maintain a relationship that costs me my peace. You start focusing inward. You take that attention you used to pour outward and invest it back into yourself. Your healing, your growth, your joy. You begin to fill the space with your own energy, not theirs, and in doing so, you become a magnet, not to attention, but to alignment, and people feel it. They may not understand it, but they feel it. That urgency you used to carry, gone. That anxiety that used to radiate from you, gone. You've replaced it with calm certainty. You've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't need to chase because she knows what she brings. And when you hold that energy, the very people who once ran from you will begin to feel the pull, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped. You elevate yourself, worth frequency, and in doing so, you change the lens through which you experience the entire world. You no longer just talk about loving yourself, you live it. It's no longer a concept in your head. It's a standard that flows through every action, decision, and interaction. You start asking different questions. Not why didn't they stay, but why was I willing to settle? Not what's wrong with me, but what part of me believed this was the best I could receive. That shift isn't small, it's seismic, because when your worth rises, everything you accept begins to align with that new standard. Elevating your self-worth frequency means you stop entertaining low-vibration connections that feed your wounds instead of your worth. You recognize how often you've accepted half, love because it mirrored your internal belief that you were only partially deserving. You begin to confront the internal programming that taught you love had to be earned, proven, or performed for, and slowly but powerfully you rewrite that story. You no longer need someone's approval to feel beautiful. You don't crave attention just to feel significant. You don't panic in silence because you know that your value doesn't fluctuate with someone's mood or presence. This internal shift also changes how you carry yourself. Your body language speaks before you do. You move differently because you're no longer moving from a place of fear. Your energy softens, but your standards strengthen. You smile, not because someone made you happy, but because you made yourself proud. You no longer rush to fix or chase. You give people the space to meet you, and if they don't, so be it. That's the frequency of someone who trusts herself, who honors her energy, and who no longer negotiates her boundaries for scraps of attention. You also become more aware of your internal dialogue, that voice in your head. It becomes kinder, stronger, more loyal. You stop calling yourself too emotional or too much. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's inability to love you fully. You stop overanalyzing your flaws and start recognizing your gifts. You start treating yourself like someone you deeply respect. And as that self-respect grows, your tolerance for being treated as an option disappears entirely. The most powerful part of this frequency shift is that it doesn't require anyone else to change. It doesn't depend on a text, an apology, or a reunion. It lives in you, and once you lock into it, the people who couldn't meet you before will either rise to your level or fall away. You won't need to force it, you won't need to control it, because when yourself, worth becomes your compass, anything that doesn't reflect that value simply no longer fits in your life. You've outgrown survival. Now, you're standing in self-honor, and from that space, only what matches your elevation can remain. You detach from outcome and lean into faith, and when you do, a profound internal shift occurs. You stop obsessing over whether or not someone comes back, stops ignoring you, or finally realizes your worth. You stop needing things to unfold in the exact way you imagined, because you finally understand attachment to outcome is the root of your anxiety. It's the mental grip that keeps you stuck in the past or frozen in fear about the future. Detachment isn't about not caring, it's about releasing the need to control a story that was never fully yours to write. It's about choosing peace over pressure, and when you release your hold, everything you once chased has the freedom to find its way to you, or away from you, which is equally important. Faith doesn't require proof. It requires presence. You stop replaying old conversations in your head, wondering what you should have said. You stop checking your phone 100 times a day for a sign or a message. You stop giving your nervous system away to someone else's inconsistency. Instead, you redirect that focus back to your own center. You breathe deeper, you ground yourself in the now, and you remind yourself that you are safe even without the answers you thought you needed. Because the truth is, you don't need to know the how, the when, or the if. All you need to do is keep moving forward with faith. Faith in yourself, in your growth, and in the idea that what's truly aligned will never pass you by. As you detach, you reclaim your emotional sovereignty. You stop needing their apology to forgive, their return to feel validated, their attention to feel significant. You understand that needing certainty from someone who couldn't give you clarity is a setup for disappointment. So you drop the expectations, you don't drop your standards, but you do release your grip on timing, on outcome, on trying to force something to be ready before it actually is, and in doing so, your nervous system calms. You stop swinging between hope and despair, you land in acceptance. The beauty of this energy is that it doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You show up every day for your life with intention. You invest in your growth, your health, your goals, your relationships, not because you're distracting yourself from what you lost, but because you've remembered who you are. You don't need someone to come back to feel whole. You've already come back to yourself, and in that return, your energy shifts into peace, real peace, not the peace that comes when things go your way, but the kind that stays even when they don't. That level of detachment sends a signal to the universe, and to anyone connected to you, that you're no longer available for confusion, for games, for love. You've surrendered the outcome not because you gave up, but because you grew up. And from that level of emotional maturity, anything that is real will find its way back. Everything else, let it fall away, because you're no longer chasing, you're trusting, and that's the most magnetic energy there is. You become emotionally sovereign, and that changes everything. You no longer let someone else's behavior dictate how you feel about yourself or how you experience your day. Emotional sovereignty means you've reclaimed the authority over your own inner world. Their silence no longer robs you of sleep. Their inconsistency no longer causes emotional whiplash. You stop reacting to every message, or lack of one, and instead start responding to your own needs, your own truth. You stop needing someone else to be okay for you to feel okay. That's power, that's maturity, that's healing in motion. When you were emotionally entangled, you probably felt like your emotions were on a roller coaster, always climbing, crashing, looping, depending on how they acted. If they were warm, you glowed. If they pulled away, you spiraled. It wasn't love. It was emotional dependency, and it's not your fault. You were wired to believe that love was something to be earned, managed, held tightly. But sovereignty is the opposite of that. It's not cold or detached, it's stable, it's grounded. It says, I feel deeply, but I no longer allow those feelings to drown me. This kind of self-leadership doesn't make you emotionless, it makes you intentional. You still feel the ache of missing someone, you still notice when their absence is loud, but now, instead of begging for their attention to fix that ache, you meet yourself there with compassion. You ask, what do I need right now that I keep hoping they'll give me? And then you give it to yourself, reassurance, comfort, encouragement. You stop outsourcing your emotional stability and begin creating it from within. Your feelings become signals, not chains. You honor them, but you no longer let them run your life. When you're emotionally sovereign, you also start to respond rather than react. You no longer fire off a message when you feel anxious. You pause, you breathe. You give yourself a moment to come back into alignment before you speak or act. You set boundaries not to punish others, but to protect your peace. You say no without guilt, walk away without drama, and sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it. That kind of control, the kind where you master your inner world, is magnetic. People can sense it. They don't know what changed, but they feel the difference. You're no longer emotionally available for chaos, and that shift, it creates a ripple effect. The people who once had emotional power over you will feel the loss of control. The space you used to fill with overgiving, over-explaining, over-caring, it's empty now, and that emptiness is loud. But instead of filling it with noise, you let it echo with your peace. Emotional sovereignty doesn't make you unreachable. It makes you deeply connected to yourself, and from that place, only the emotionally mature, the present, the grounded, only those who match your peace can get close to your heart again, not because you built walls, but because you built standards. You embody purpose, and suddenly your life stops revolving around someone else's attention and starts expanding from within. This is where the real transformation becomes visible, not just to others, but to you. You no longer live in pause mode, waiting for a message, a visit, or a second chance. You no longer organize your days around emotional availability from someone else. Instead, you begin pouring yourself into what truly lights you up. Into passions you once put aside, into goals you were too distracted to pursue, into becoming the version of yourself you always knew was there, strong, focused, and fulfilled. Purpose doesn't always come as some grand mission. Sometimes it begins with small, sacred commitments, waking up early and working out not for a body transformation, but for a disciplined transformation, sitting in silence and journaling your thoughts so you can clear the noise and hear your own voice again. Starting a creative project that's been sitting on the shelf, gathering dust because you were too consumed with someone who didn't see your brilliance. Bit by bit, you rebuild your identity, not around a relationship, but around your values. Your vision, your voice, you become so immersed in your own momentum that looking back stops making sense. When you embody purpose, your energy changes completely. There's a fire behind your eyes again. A calm behind your movements, a direction behind your decisions. You're no longer floating in limbo, reacting to someone else's breadcrumbs. You've chosen a path, and even if it's uncertain or imperfect, it's yours. And that ownership, that decision to invest in your own life instead of waiting for someone to return and complete it, that's what makes you unstoppable. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for happiness, you build it. Daily, deliberately, and here's what's wild. The moment you stop trying to impress them, you start impressing yourself. The version of you that once needed someone to tell you who you were is now defining herself by action, by impact, by integrity. You become emotionally lighter, spiritually stronger, and mentally clearer. You start surrounding yourself with people who speak your new language, who see your growth and want to grow alongside you. You no longer fit in rooms that require you to shrink. You walk into spaces and no longer seek permission, you simply belong. This shift into purpose doesn't just attract new opportunities, it rewrites your story. You're no longer the one who was left, ignored, or forgotten. You're the one who rose, who chose herself, who transformed heartbreak into fuel and silence into strength. And the people who once overlooked you, they feel the shift, they see what they lost, but by then, you're no longer hoping they'll return. You're too busy living the life that waiting would have stolen from you. You've moved from pain to power, from confusion to clarity, from surviving to thriving. That's what purpose does. It rewrites everything. You radiate peace, not pressure, and in that calm, you become unmistakably powerful. There is a stillness within you now that no longer seeks to force love, rush healing, or beg for clarity. You are no longer trying to push timelines, convince anyone of your worth, or orchestrate outcomes that were never in your hands to begin with. Instead, your presence speaks for itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't plead. It simply is, and in that energy, everything starts to shift. Not just around you, but within you. When you radiate peace, you've stopped measuring your value based on someone's response. You don't spiral when there's distance, you don't panic in the silence, you know who you are, you know what you bring, and you've accepted that if something is meant for you, it will never require you to abandon yourself to have it. That kind of internal stability is rare, it's attractive, and it creates an invisible field around you that says, I am whole, you can either meet me in this peace or keep moving. This energy is born from doing the deep, often invisible work, healing the patterns that once made you overextend, overexplain, overcompensate. You've learned how to self-soothe, how to hold space for your own emotions without needing someone else to validate or resolve them. And because of that, your energy doesn't enter rooms trying to get picked at walks in already knowing that you belong. You no longer try to earn love through effort. You embody it through presence. People can feel when they can't push your buttons anymore. When their unpredictability no longer shakes your foundation, when their distance no longer makes you chase, but gives you clarity instead. And while they may not know exactly what changed, they feel it. Your energy is no longer tangled with theirs. You are no longer energetically waiting, you've released the grip, and in that release you've made room for something deeper to enter, whether that's a return, a new love, or simply a deeper connection with yourself. What once pulled you out of alignment now barely moves you, not because you've become numb, but because you've become centered, and when you radiate peace, you don't need to say much, you don't need to prove anything. People who once took your energy for granted begin to realize what they lost, not because you told them, but because they can feel the space where your chaos used to be. It's gone, replaced by stillness, replaced by presence, replaced by self-respect. And only those who can respect your peace can now step into your world. When your energy shifts, everything around you responds. Not because you begged, chased, or demanded, but because you became unavailable for anything that doesn't reflect your value. The moment you stop trying to get someone to see your worth and start seeing it for yourself, the game changes. Not just in your relationships, but in how you move through the world. You begin to walk with calm, speak with clarity, and exist without emotional chaos. You're no longer performing love, you're embodying it. And people feel that, whether they say it or not, they feel your shift and it shakes them. Your transformation doesn't scream for attention. It commands it quietly, powerfully. You're no longer reaching for a version of love that asks you to sacrifice your peace. You're choosing yourself first, and in doing so, you reset the energetic tone of your entire life. This isn't about getting someone back. This is about getting yourself back. Rebuilding the pieces of you that were lost in the chase, in the silence, in the waiting. And as those pieces return, so does your confidence, so does your joy, so does your future. The very things that used to trigger you no longer have power. You've outgrown the patterns that kept you in cycles of emotional instability. That's what growth looks like. Not perfection, but power. You trust your intuition now. You move with intention. You're grounded in truth, not just emotion. That's what draws people back. but by the time they return, you're no longer the version of you they left behind. You've evolved, you've risen, and now you get to choose if they're still aligned with who you've become. This journey is about more than getting someone's attention. It's about turning inward and remembering that you are the source. The source of your peace, the source of your power, the source of your healing. Once you truly understand that, you stop waiting for someone else to complete you. You realize you were never missing. You were just disconnected from your own light, but now you're connected, empowered, unshakable, and nothing, not even their return, can take that from you. So if they come back, let them come back to someone who's whole. Someone who no longer waits but welcomes only what aligns, and if they don't come back, let them stay gone, because the version of you that's walking forward now is no longer willing to abandon herself to keep anyone. Your energy has shifted, your heart is wiser, your spirit is stronger, and your future, it's unfolding, with or without them, on your terms, in your power, as it was always meant to, of course. Here's a strong and emotionally resonant thank you and good bye note to end your speech or video on a high note. Thank you so much for being here today, for listening, for feeling, and for giving yourself the gift of growth. It means more than you know. Every time you choose to show up for yourself, even through heartbreak, confusion, or silence, you're rewriting your story in the most powerful way possible. Please remember, this journey is yours, and you are never behind. You're exactly where you need to be. Keep choosing yourself over fear, over pressure, over patterns that no longer serve you. Your energy is sacred, your peace is priceless, and your transformation is already in motion. If this message spoke to something deep inside of you, take it as a sign. You are awakening, you are rising, you are becoming someone even you will admire. Keep going, one aligned choice at a time. Until next time, take care of your heart, trust your timing, and protect your peace fiercely. Thank you and goodbye for now. You've got this.